Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. How is everybody doing? Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let me make sure the sound is working real quick. Yes, it is. Shout out to everybody, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to everybody on Twitter. We are also streaming on Twitter. Shout out to everybody watching us from that area. Shout out to you guys all. First of all, I want to say thank you for those that have left comments, for your emails pertaining to this topic. I did have to come back and, like, you know, now that it's been a good 24 hours, I think that I've watched this whole series to kind of decompress a little bit. And then some of you guys send me a bunch of emails about how you wanted to talk about it, or at least wanted to be present in the chat or watch or whatever it was, because you wanted to give your take on the series. You hadn't finished it or whatever. So hopefully you guys have. Um, so I want to do a little follow up on that. Yesterday, after thinking about this topic, because I do think about stuff that I talk about online, I went to bed kind of thinking a little bit. Oh, shots right for still saying Twitter. I know. Excuse me, X. Stephanie, I know. I'm sorry, y'all, but I think X, and I think of like there's a huge X app on my phone, and I'm like, it's almost like a, I don't know, like a weird app, But they should have called it something else. I like Twitter. I don't know. I'm always gonna like it. Twitter. You binged yesterday. You said it was super disturbing. A lot of folks binged. So I binged yesterday morning, and then people, after I said what I said, a lot of people started watching it, I guess, and had some more reactions to it. And I was like, yeah, let me, now that I've processed a little bit more, I feel like I could talk a little bit more about it. We did review Dan Snyder's apology yesterday with Boogie, and we broke out the Titanic violins, and we're just like, he's trying to justify, deflect. It is what it is. Um, I have, I have Anya. I have, when we did review it, so many excuses. Well, he wasn't really touching on the topic. He wasn't touching on the fact, like, first of all, he wasn't touching on Ariana Grande's like foot, all these foot scenes, inappropriate scenes, because he kept saying, you know, if something was inappropriate, if everybody had voted and it was inappropriate, he would have cut it off. If it made somebody uncomfortable, he would have cut it off. He would have done this. And I'm just like in my mind thinking, well, why the hell do we still have reruns of this damn shows? Like, why are reruns happening? You have the young there's a YouTuber here who was a former castmate on Zoe 101. Her name is Alexa. Shout out to her. She's got a YouTube channel, and she's been breaking a lot of this stuff down, right? And she talked about her being a victim as well, in terms of some of these shows and some of the stuff that she confronted on these sets, right? So I'm just like, especially the scene that she's describing, where I mean, it's disturbing. So if all of this, if, like he said, if people would have brought this to my attention, we would have cut the scene. We would have cut it. And then why the hell do we still have reruns of these shows around? And I'm still drinking coffee out of Christmas cups. Hmm. And it's almost April. Shout out to everybody in the chat. No, no, no. Yeah, he couldn't care less. He does not care. The man has made that very certain. Okay. Um, yes, yes, Miss Joni. Anything pertaining, it's just very disturbing. And I even went back a little bit, because people that had emailed me had said, "Well, what about Drake Bell and what he did?" Because yes, Drake Bell um is a victim of Brian Peck. Completely understand that. But what this rings very true is that people that are victimized, if you don't receive the proper, I don't know, mental health treatment, supportive services, something, if you don't address some of this, right, that's weighing heavy on you, you could likely victimize others. Or if just even that was so disturbing to find out even details of what happened to Drake Bell, and then also what later Drake Bell did. Okay, I wasn't a fan of that. I mean, of course not. We're never a fan of any of that. But I just, even hearing that news, I thought was just like, you can't bypass that. You can't overlook that. You have to be able to put that in the forefront. Yeah, exactly. Victims can become perpetrators. Absolutely. If they don't address There are issues. If things don't come to head, and it's unfortunate because people, this was ringing a lot on my comments yesterday. I have to read somebody's comment. And we talked about time frame, right? And somebody put in my comment, and I love the person that said this comment. They said, a different time simply means when no one was stopping me. I was surrounded by enablers. I was making them money. So when Boogie asked the question about, well, now people are finding these jokes offensive, or now they're finding this offensive, or now people are side eyeing certain things about, what you did, Dan, whatever. And people in my comments were also saying, well, this was a different time. The writers, this was a different time. This was the 90s. It was hard to be a woman to get a job, that kind of situation. You have to understand that it rings truth. That does ring truth, that it was a different time in which people weren't holding people accountable. And so it was okay, but it's not okay. Which one is it? So you kind of fall into this like thought process. And I was thinking about this last night. I was like, yeah, that shouldn't take away from the victim. We shouldn't say to the victim, well, it was a different time. It was okay back then. No, 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 no. We should never say any of that, right? But it does speak to the fact that enabling, whether it was in the 90s, 80s, 70s, early 2000s, um, people enable people. And people don't call out people because they're in positions where, you know, maybe it's that one great job, or it's that one great position that you will never get because you're a woman, or the pay, or whatever it may be. So it's an interesting take to that. I don't think anyone is blaming the people for not speaking up. Right. It's hard for me to believe that teachers on the scene weren't mandated reporters. Right. Neuropsych, it makes you wonder a little bit, like even now, like I said, I've had time to sleep on this. It makes you wonder because, like BJ was saying in the chat, who did the makeup? Who else was reading scripts? Who sat there? Who was the secretary at the front desk? Who was taking calls? There can't just be, just the people that were doing these interviews that had the concerns. There were other people that were receiving salaries or volunteering or seeking an opportunity that couldn't have spoken out, that could have said something. Like, but then you have situations where Brian Peck gets convicted, he's sentenced, he serves, whatever time, and so, whatever that was, right? Whatever that time, even though in my opinion he probably should have, been there a lot longer than what he got. That's just my opinion. Um, then there was this instance where, he gets the job with Disney. He gets hired. And what does that tell you? It's almost like, well, the slap in the face. It's who you know. It's always who you know. It's always who you know, no matter what. And it's Hollywood, sure. Blame it on Hollywood. Blame it on the fucking system. Until people wake up and realize that we're all part of that system, that we're all taxpayers of that system, that we all hold a card in that system. Then we'll probably maybe have a further understanding that you can't just pass the buck. Where does the buck stop? Right? Where does it stop? Where are we at? I don't know. Yeah, you only got 60 months probation. Well, and then there's that. And how many other victims do we have? Do we know if there's other victims? It's interesting, right? I had just some time to listen to Pod Meets World. So I think it was the 19th of February. I have a feeling that this is some of the castmates of Boy Meets World, right? And for me, I watched the show. I was, a fan growing up because it was probably the only show that would air, on public television, and I didn't have cable, so it was a good watch for me, right? And I was listening a little bit to their episode, and I kind of made me question a little bit about, did they do this episode knowing that the series was going to come out, knowing that their support letters were going to be displayed, and so they kind of did this as a like PR stunt, another one. Um, they brought in the YouTube therapist. I forgot her name, Katie something, Katie, the big one. I used to listen to some of Katie's stuff years ago. I don't know where she's at now. I don't, as far as like, is she, is her stuff any good or whatever? Some people have like a love-hate relationship, but it also felt interesting to listen to this. I'm gonna have you guys. I did take a portion out of it, so we can all listen to it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about some of what. And again, Ryder and Will wrote apology letters. Where some of the letters that were revealed were Ryder Strong and Will's letters towards Brian Peck. Right. This is character witness letters that they wrote. So I thought this was interesting. Has everybody listened to this? And this was aired back on the 19th of February. It was interesting in the sense of like how they came about, Brian, how they're also identifying as well as um, victims, right? This being a different time, kind of that same like lingo of this was a different time, this was Hollywood as a child star. You kind of grew up a little bit faster than most. It was like kids hanging out with adults. I mean, because you couldn't really hang out with kids of your own age, given that you're working in this kind of industry. I can understand that piece of them not having maybe kids their own age that they could have related to, but also like the industry pushed them towards hanging out with more adults, which I thought was an interesting argument. I said, well, that's interesting because as a kid growing up myself, I tend to I was clinging more to older teens and older adults than kids my age because I felt I had to grow up very fast as a young kid, very very fast. I was, I'm the oldest, so I had to kind of, figure shit out on my own, and also I related to that in a little bit. But it's interesting this little podcast conversation that they had. Teresa says, just because it wasn't stopped doesn't make it right. So saying it was a different time, it's just deflection, period. I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, but listen to Will and Ryder's thought process behind Brian Peck and the letters, okay? Let's listen to a little bit of this. Hopefully this plays and sounds good. You guys can't hear? Y'all can't hear? No sound? Okay, thank you for letting me know. Oh, Lord, what's going on? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to download it and see if I can get it. Thank you guys for letting me know in the chat. Y'all, you couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear it. All right. Okay, I think I got it in a different way. Let me stop sharing. I got it here. Shout out to everybody. Thank y'all. I thought y'all could hear it. All right, then. Well, you can't. Okay. So again, this is the episode on the 19th of February, and they're talking about kind of Brian Peck and, the fact that he was kind of acceptable. They talked a little bit about homophobia and what that played in Hollywood, what that looked like at that time. Just listen.
Cultures, or in some circles, it's still acceptable for guys to talk about like teenage girls as if that's like, and I'm like, I just like in retro, like, oh my God, that makes me sick to my stomach. Like, why would you ever come to?
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
That's
the thing that's so amazing though, is that when you're a kid or when you're younger, I wouldn't even use the word kid, when you're younger, that's where your brain goes, is because mine did the same thing. It goes to, you're right, that is homophobic. I shouldn't be thinking like that way because I don't think that way about the straight guys. When in actuality, you should be thinking that way about the straight guys. That's what should change, is your idea about, no, it's all disgusting.
Right.
Yeah, we should.
But you don't do that. You go, oh my God, you're right. You're my gay friend, and I just judged you, and now you're telling me I'm judging you because you're gay. Oh my God, I'm horrible.
I feel bad.
And so,
But
it was, the whole situation was, again, you want to look, it'd be one thing to look back and say, hey, we're realizing this was a pattern now, and it's terrible, and I'm glad we realized it. And again,
No, it sucks, baby girl. You're not the only one who said it, though. And let me be very clear. It wasn't just you. It was other people who said it in the comments, especially when the replay was done. And then I also got some messages, which I thought was, it's a relevant point. People have said it's a point to bring up as far as what that looks like then and now. But also, even these guys discussing that point is important. I mean, I would agree. So you're not the only one who said it. It sucks, baby girl.
I haven't seen Ryder saw him 7 years ago, ran into him at a party. I haven't seen this guy in almost 20 years. and that would be fine if we could use that for our growth. Great, but there's an actual victim here, and he turned us against the victim to where now we're on his team. And how is that? And that's the thing where, to me, I look back at that as my ever-loving shame for this entire. I mean, getting taken in by somebody who's a good actor and a manipulator. Hey, I could chalk that up to being young, and that's the way it is. It's awful, and I'm going to use that as my growth. For my growth as a human being. Great. But when there's an actual victim involved, and now I'm on the abuser's side, that's the thing I can't get over, and haven't been able to get over.
To be clear, though, he didn't deny that. He didn't say that nothing had happened. So by the time we heard about this case and knew anything about it, it was always in the context of, I did this thing, I am guilty, I am going to take whatever punishment the government, determines I am. But I'm a victim of jailbait, right? Like I saw that, there was this hot guy and I just did this thing, and
he did all of it.
Underage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we bought that storyline. We bought into that storyline, as opposed to saying, whoa, grown man who's 40 something years old, like, what the hell were you doing to begin?
Why are you even in that position? Yeah, why are you there? Right. And for me, he called me to his house, which I've been to maybe twice. So that alone was weird. And he sat me down, and because I guess you said this happened in 2001. I didn't hear about this until it was way after 2001.
Yeah. So Brian Peck had invited them to his house. Will is saying he sat him down. He didn't know anything about it. I mean, this is just kind of like blind support. They wrote these letters. This is what had happened, right?
Where he sat me down and
he was arrested in 2003.
Okay, so I think that's when I found out about it, was 2003 or 2004, maybe even later. And he called me to his house. So he said to me, hey, this is what's happening, but this is what happened. He's crying the whole time.
Here's the real story.
And here's the real story. And I think we'd just done a film together, which he got me this role because I wasn't auditioning at the time. It wasn't a great time in my life.
Which is it's very important for you to say that part, because I know, because it isn't about the mental illness. It's about the fact that he got you a part. You were not auditioning because of your anxiety. And he got you a part, a straight offer for a movie.
Yeah.
And you felt indebted to him, whether or not that's part of it.
I mean, I did.
You felt that as part of the manipulation, and Katie can speak to that. I'm not the expert here, but that's part of his manipulation.
Maybe, but again, the idea of wrapping up my mental illness in any of it, like, because to me, it seems like I'm pointing to my mental illness, like I'm blaming it. And it's no excuse, frankly.
I'm just saying, as part of your relationship, he did you such a favor and a solid by getting you a role that you didn't have to audition for. And so as part of your relationship with him, you carried this piece of, this very good friend of mine has stuck his neck out for me. Yeah. And to anyone, you feel indebted in that situation. So you had just come off of that movie. He brings you to his house. And then what does he tell you the story is?
Well, I mean, I don't want to tell the whole, it's pretty awful. So I don't want to tell the whole story, but it wasn't him at all. Yes, he committed this act, but he committed this act after being manipulated himself, after being taken advantage of, after, I mean, you name it. By the end, he was the saint.
Jailbait. It was the idea of like this young, hot person
who'd been trying forever to get with this person. Wore him down after trying and trying and trying. And this person gave in one time. That's
question, and we can edit this out. Yeah. But did he lie about the age of him too? Did he tell you how old the kid was, or no?
I don't remember.
What I know is that, like, since I've looked up the case, like, I didn't realize he only admitted to one thing, but he was charged originally with like a bunch of things.
Yes.
So so again, both Ryder and Will wrote character letters in support of Brian Peck at the time. And the thing that's interesting is, like, they weren't educated about the crime, I guess. You couldn't just Google search it back then when it was happening and whatnot. Maybe they didn't ask the right questions. Maybe they were kind of younger to understand at that time. I mean, there's just so much to it. Let me see. It says, you said, because the comment was borderline victim shaming the employees who was in a position they did not ask to be in. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm victim shaming the writers. I feel like there is a level of, the writers were adults at the time, and so they saw a lot of the hostility in that work environment. And I personally feel like, and this is just my opinion, I don't feel like I'm shaming those former writers or employees in any other way, other than to say they had more mobility in terms of speaking out for each other, like speaking out for the children and for, themselves. That's just my thought. My vitriol, I think I'll direct it how I feel like I needs to go, because of how I'm consuming the information, and likewise, I get where you're coming from. Corn says, kind of makes me think of bread and talked about the Hunger Games. Ooh, as long as there are people to watch, there will be a system to create what we want to see. Ooh, that's interesting. This behavior has never been okay. Different times, come on. Call out is one thing, but like I said, charging someone for past crimes is a whole different thing. I'm confused to what your comment is directed at. Circular thinking. My son grew up with Nick, but I didn't teach him or allow him treating anyone badly. It's not about that. Sorry. Completely understand. The writers of the show were complicit in the abuse of those children by writing such said content. I was grossed out. That's how I feel. But if that's victim shaming, then I feel like I'm pointing out what is obvious. Do I feel bad for the ish? Nobody should go through the ish that they went through, but they also had a choice. But you guys wrote these scripts, or did somebody else write them? Like, am I like where are we watching the same show? Are we watching the same documentary? I just want to make sure I understand that. Hollywood seems to look at kids the same way that Scientology does. Big being in small bodies. Right. It's almost like that's a good point, and that's a great comparison. There is no child development. These are just working humans in, little bodies. You said, yeah, I think them using the excuse, well, this was how things was back then, as a cop-out. It is. And I also think that it was in bad taste to put the writer's experience, like I get the hostile environment, but you can't put them, in my opinion, okay, you can't put them in the same category as the child victims. Like, I don't think that lands very well. And I thought about it over and over. It just doesn't. I don't. There needs to be a separation of that. In my opinion, all crimes are past crimes, or you can't charge for future crimes. Well, there's that. How many adults tell kids to grow up? How many adults tell their grown kids to grow up over something that affects them as a kid, maybe that they cause? How about the adults who are adults grow up? Okay. It was a little triggering, that, but I feel like that's just calling it obvious, and I'm not the only one who sees it that way too. What I was Hold on, what did you say? What I saw was written. What I saw was write it or get fired, says Rose. That's a good point. So it was like, remember there was this one scene, I think it was like episode 1 or 2, where they had to yell out the word slut or some shit like that. If what's his name, Dan Schneider, was typing it up, like they had to yell it out or something to that effect. So that's an interesting way to kind of put it. Like, it's either you do it or get fired. Go back to working a temp job, like the other lady said. It was a hostile work environment. But if it was hostile for you, just imagine what it was for those kids. Hostile for those kids. So I think it's the same in that, like, hostility, but I don't know. I personally feel like there was a lot more choices in the matter for the adults.
But I never heard about those other things, because back then
Nor did I.
you couldn't Google to like find out what people were being charged with. So like in retrospect, he was making a plea deal and admitting one thing, which is all he admitted to us, but it looks like he was actually being charged with a series of crimes.
Which
and that's really disturbing.
And it's almost like the Bill Cosby effect, where like one person comes out and then you're like, holy shit, because if he's that good of a manipulator, which clearly he is, and probably so much so that he even believes his own lies, you know what I mean? In order to come across so calm, cool, collected, this is what happened, to get emotional.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, he then asked us to support him and go to court with him, which a lot of us did. And we're sitting in that courtroom on the wrong side of everything, of course, having no idea of this, filled with child actors, to the point where the victim's mother turned and said, look at all the famous people you brought with you. And it doesn't.
Wow. So Will is saying, we went to court. We were sitting at the wrong side. Okay. I'm kind of wondering if Ryder and Will have reached out to Drake Bell, or, to kind of amend the situation. Have they messaged him? Have they, or did they do this first to kind of like in preparation for this docuseries that was going to come out? Kind of makes you wonder.
Doesn't change what you did to my kid. And I just sat there wanting to die, where it was like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
And it was horrifying all the way around. And
question. Were there any women there? Did he bring any famous women with him?
I can't remember. I
never had friends that were women.
I don't think he had any friends that were women. But there was a lot of us. I mean, there was a lot of us there that were very recognizable, again, to the point where the victim's mom pointed it out. And, he had Ryder and I write letters of support to the judge. And these are things we did. And again, we did them because we were then lied to. We weren't told the whole story, but it doesn't change the fact that we did it. And
well, I think part of it, just not to cut you off.
No, please. I'm rambling at this point.
No, you're fine. It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack because you knew this one story and now there's all this evidence of another story, and it's, with, for lack of a better term, it's a mind fuck. You're like, what? But I think the big piece that we have to remember, and I know this might be a hard pill to swallow, is that you were victimized in your own way. We're not comparing pain for pain. I'm not saying, oh, if you take this slice of pie, there's less pain for others. You know, a lot of people feel like that. Like, well, if I say I'm a victim, then what does that mean for that child that he harmed too? We're not comparing, but you were victimized in your own way. Think of the pain that you're enduring now, trying to figure out, make sense of, like you said, the shame and the guilt, and like, what the hell am I doing here? This is horrifying. I think a big piece of, when you said, like, I take this to grow in my life, like, I think a big piece of the healing is going to be acknowledging the fact that someone took advantage of you in a situation when you didn't think you were vulnerable, and you were, and they were like a master manipulator.
And so again, that's the lady, what's her name? Katie, YouTube therapist and everything. Let me see. Why would you think a child would report this behavior if it wasn't true? I don't know, Kings. Can you clarify your comment, please? And thank you. Alexa said that they didn't reach out to Drake. Oh, and he didn't know they supported him until making the doc. See, that's interesting. I didn't. Wow. Yeah, because he didn't find out about the character witness letters until after the documentary. My understanding is that that's when they were able to unseal those documents. Carrie Ann, if I remember reading something like that, nobody knew it was Drake either. Like, it was a lot of, they were surprised by the news, right? It Talks Baby Girl says, and until you're placed in a power vacuum, you will have no idea what choices you will make, especially when you may be the sole provider of your household. I have never been in a situation like those writers. To that, yeah, you're absolutely correct. But I have been the sole provider of my household, and I have made choices and have had to respond to them, as well as give up things that would have made me a lot of money. So that I see things both ways in that sense. Making deals with the devil, shake my head, all of them for a status, fame, and job. Hey, DJ Souls, I'm new here. Ned from Ned's Declassified Mock Essay, Victims of Dan in the Van. Really? That's sad. Yes, I hope so too. They need a mandated reporter for all sets. Well, and even that is concerning when Dan Snyder said, well, we need some therapists. I'm like, yeah, but who's paying for them? Because for all we know, like, how do we know they're not going to be, manipulated by, like, this is a one-in opportunity kind of job to be a therapist on the set for this. Therefore, I don't want to lose this kind of job and not report or not say something. It's just Hollywood makes people act a little different, You said I was surprised at myself by what Molly Ringwald said about how her daughter didn't understand why her character was attracted to the hunk in 16 Candles. I grew up with that movie. Wow. I don't know. They always seem to stand up for the perpetrator and re-victimize the victim. Let's see. Okay. Do you think people rehashing this talk over and over for the next few weeks is a form of re-victimizing? I personally feel like they did the docu-series in the idea that people were going to rehash and talk about it, like in preparation for that. I personally feel like that's, yeah, they were prepared for that. I don't think it's re-victimizing because, I don't know. It's yes, and we wouldn't really know that unless we asked them. But personally, I feel like they kind of would have expected that. I mean, don't you think? You're coming out there. The public's gonna say stuff about this, and they're gonna talk about this. You said Nickelodeon dropped the ball so bad. Even today, they're not listening to any victims and pretending it's all good. Well, it's just these, between corporations, agencies, celebrities having a certain level of power, that, over time it's given to them. It's interesting. Or has it given victims a voice? That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, let me know your thoughts. Or is it opening the door for other victims to speak out? We never know. We really don't know. You have to talk about it. If you're talking, then I'm sure they want to talk about it. Right. I would think so. So there's going to be different levels. Like Twitter right now has been like dissecting what everybody has put out there. They have always seemed to stand up for the perpetrator and re-victimize the victims. So the point of doing the documentary is to share their stories and create a conversation. It definitely is creating a lot of conversation. She says, Venus says, I'm just thinking that there are more kids now, adults who went through this, and this could push them over the age. I don't know. It just makes me think, well, yes, I see what you're saying, but I also feel like this was meant to be a conversation starter, and I'm kind of wondering like who else is going to come out of this and who else is going to say something about this. It's out there for a reason. They're going to talk about it and they're wanting to speak up. Yes, uncomfortable conversations are the key to social growth and understanding. Absolutely. And it makes me think, because this is just a small snippet of what goes on. Imagine what we don't know about others or other victims, right? We really don't know. I'm no victim, but I think if I would try to hide it, hid it to avoid shame, I don't know. And see, the thing is we can't really speak for them. But we could definitely try to understand and maybe hear them out. Nickelodeon is making money on these exact shows as reruns. That's the other thing too. So different times now. No, that's a good point. So that was the point that I was making. I was like, when Dan Schneider went up there and he said, well, it was a different time. It was, or excuse me, not a different time. That's not what he said. He said that he would have removed the show if it was offensive to somebody. If they would have cut it out, he would have done that. And it makes me think that, like, if that's the case, well, then can he remove some of these reruns? Why are some of these shows still playing? Like, if they hurt so many people and he knows it, why are they still like playing? Why are they available? It makes you wonder. I want to go a little bit to, and I know that this is the piece, right? And like I said, we have to acknowledge this. If we're going to acknowledge how Drake Bell was victimized, we also have to acknowledge kind of that pattern. This woman right here is a victim, and I was actually able to pull, I think it was a sentencing hearing for Drake Bell, and where the victim spoke. Yeah, it was the sentencing hearing 2 years ago. It was aired on Law and Crime. So this kind of breaks down a little bit of that case. But as we're watching this, of course, huge trigger warning. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Bell is a pedophile, and that is his legacy.
Nickelodeon star Drake Bell shocked the world when he was arrested for having an inappropriate relationship with a minor. But what did he really do?
You should date whoever you want to date. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
It all began in June 2021, when the Drake and Josh actor was charged with attempted endangering of children.
Most of the news that you've heard recently is entirely false and wrong.
He went online to explain this all came from a misunderstanding while texting someone he didn't know was underage.
Responded to somebody who had created a fake Instagram and were sending me messages, and I had responded, but that's all it was. Some text messages.
However, his accuser revealed more creepy details about the relationship, including that they have met several times in the past few years due to a mutual friend of her aunt.
From the time I was 12 to 15, my aunt took me to meet him and spend time with him many times.
At first, the victim states the relationship between Bell and her was strictly friendly.
When I was 13, I went to him for boy advice. He told me that I was beautiful and that boys were stupid.
But it allegedly quickly led to the actor demanding blatantly sexual pictures from the girl.
The photos exchanged included photos of my body and photos of his body and his genitals.
The actor quickly came forward to deny this accusation. These photos were never found.
I want to make clear that there were no sexual images, nothing physical between me and this individual. I was not charged with anything physical.
15-year-old teenager declared that she was forced to continue sending these photos for years.
Because I was terrified of upsetting him, so I would make excuses. He made me feel disgusting and absolutely awful about myself.
The girl would try to find occasions to see him face to face.
This individual continued to come to shows and pay for meet and greets.
She once went to visit him at one of his concerts.
That night, the defendant took me backstage to be alone with him. He started kissing me, and the night ended in him having me perform oral sex on him twice.
Nevertheless, none of the friends who came with her to the concert could confirm this story.
They were like, what are you talking? We were there. We were there the whole time.
The victim alleges she was sexually abused by Bell a second time.
In his hotel room, he started kissing me and had me perform oral sex on him again. My aunt was right outside the room waiting in the hallway while this was happening.
Days later.
Ooh, let me stop right there. You guys would say, where's the aunt? I mean, it's a lot. Wouldn't have been a forensic analysis on both of their phones? I don't know. So just so you, I mean, well, listen, this happened, well, I believe he was sentenced in 2021. So he was given 2 years of probation and child endangerment case. Okay. She attended one of his concerts in 2017. Let's see. This was out of Cleveland, Ohio. The judge said your position and celebrity status enabled you to nurture this relationship. It, even those words are like interesting. Your position and celebrity status enabled you to nurture this relationship. Similar, right? Like, think about it. A lot of these people in Hollywood, they have this position that they get. The Brian Pecks, the Dan Schneiders, all these other people. Interesting. So yeah, if her aunt is right there, why not walk out? I don't know, sir. I don't know. See, and again, he's already been. See, to ask these questions is like, I don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Yeah.
Later, the girl texted Bell, but instead, his wife answered.
Till I received a message back from the defendant's account claiming to be Janet.
The Nickelodeon star was afraid of what the teenager could do to his family.
They ended up going after my wife and threatening me and doing all these things.
Not much later, the messages between them stopped.
The sexual messages continued for a while after that, until I eventually put a stop to them.
However, Bell argues none of this happened, and that he was the one who stopped their communication.
Responded to a fan whose age I didn't know, yet when I became aware of their age, all conversation and communication stopped.
When the accusations became public, the press claimed that the Drake and Josh actor had been charged with sexual assault.
If these claims were remotely true, my situation would be very different. I would not be here at home with my wife and my son.
Bell was
And he denied it. He denied these allegations, similar to his abuser likely denying some of these allegations too, right? Like, it's kind of sad to see some of this play out.
To 2 years of probation and 200 hours of community service. He then explained in an interview that a conversation with his lawyer led him to accept his plea.
You'll get probation, community service, and you won't miss a day in California with your son.
The victim was not satisfied with the result and demanded a stronger sentence.
I chose to confront him about what he had done to me because I wanted to gain my power back.
Drake Bell now spends much of his life in Mexico, free, and with a YouTube channel where he shares his experience of the country.
Jared Drake Bell is a pedophile.
All right, let me stop right here. And for those that don't know, I mean, this was the sentencing hearing. This was about 2 years ago. Drake Bell, the 34-year-old actor, he was 34 then, best known for the leading roles on the 2000s Nickelodeon series Drake and Josh, has been charged with a felony in Ohio over an alleged inappropriate relationship with a teenage girl. So, according to the prosecutor's office, the teen was 15 years old at the time of the alleged 2017 incident. She filed a report with her local police department in Canada in October of 2018. The report regarded an incident that allegedly happened the year before at a nightclub in Cleveland, Ohio. The Canadian authorities contacted the Cleveland Division of Police, who conducted a subsequent investigation. Prosecutor's office spokesman Tyler Sinclair, in an email to Law and Crime, said that the investigation revealed that the victim, who had established a relationship with Bell several years prior, attended his concert in December of 2017. While there, Bell violated his duty of care and, in doing so, created a risk of harm to the victim. The investigation also revealed that months leading up to the concert, Bell had sent the victim inappropriate social media messages. In addition to being an actor, Bell is a musician. So Bell pleaded not guilty in his arraignment on Thursday. The defendant is charged with attempted endangering children, a felony, and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. That's a misdemeanor. Bell's attorney indicated that all facts will be revealed in court, but he had no additional comment, said in a statement from his law firm. So he denied all wrongdoing as a relationship ended more than a decade ago. We unfortunately both called each other terrible names, as often happens when couples break up. This is a statement from an ex-girlfriend. Okay, so this was Law and Crime, and I mean, this is the victim, okay?
Sorry?
Let me interrupt for a second. I'm going to ask that you not show her picture, please. She's a minor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but no, go ahead, ma'am.
I chose to write this statement because I want justice to be served more than anything. The only time that the defendant has appeared in court in person was on June 3rd for his arraignment, which was before the media found out about this case. He has appeared in court today over Zoom instead of appearing in person. This doesn't surprise me and shows what a coward he is. But I am not a coward, and that is why I'm going to reveal all of the details of the crimes that he committed against me.
Mm.
Aside from Cleveland, the only other time that the defendant sexually assaulted me was in October of 2017. It happened in Illinois in the middle of the night. He digitally penetrated me in the back seat of my aunt's car while she was driving him to a friend's house. The Illinois police only agreed to move forward with that case if the Ohio police did not pursue this case. I don't understand why. Regardless of their reasons why, he has gotten away with sexually assaulting me in Illinois. So today, I will be discussing the details of the crimes that he has pleaded guilty to and the impact that they have had on me. But before I do that, I would like to provide you with some context on my relationship with the defendant and what led up to these crimes. This portion of my statement explains how he started grooming me when I was 12 years old. I started off as a fan of him. I was definitely one of his biggest fans. Everyone who knew me as a child knew that he was a hero to me. I would have done anything for him. When I was 11, I learned that my aunt had a mutual friend who knew the defendant. That led to my aunt taking me to meet him for the first time in 2014 when I was 12. I adored him, and he instantly made me feel that he adored me right back. From the time I was 12 to 15, my aunt took me to meet him and spend time with him many times. After I met him for the first time, he started speaking to me more frequently online. I confided in him about very personal things about myself, including my struggle with my mental health. I went to him for advice and for someone to lean on, and he gave me that. I felt protected and loved by him. When I was 13, I went to him for boy advice. He told me that I was beautiful and that boys were stupid. He then sent me a photo of myself that he had screen capped from my Instagram, telling me that I was, quote, such a cutie. I took and uploaded that photo online a year earlier when I was 12 years old. He saved that photo of me onto his phone. I didn't realize how disturbing that was until many years later. Another instance of creepy behavior happened when I was spending time with him at the age of 14. He told me that he couldn't believe how much I'd grown since he last saw me. He said that I wasn't little anymore, and I was, quote, a woman now. When I was 15, I noticed a huge shift regarding his treatment and attitude towards me. When I was younger, he was sweet and actually wanted to talk to me about my life. But at 15, he started sending me messages about how, quote, hot I was. In the summer of 2017, I messaged him, telling him that I was going to see him in concert in the following months. He replied by telling me that he couldn't wait to see me. He also asked me, quote, how old are you now? I told him 15. He then told me to, quote, hurry up, don't smile at me. Not too long after that, his messages to me became blatantly sexual. This eventually led to many months of inappropriate messages and photos being exchanged over Instagram and Snapchat. The photos exchanged included photos of my body and photos of his body and his genitals. In the beginning, I was excited. I thought that he really liked me, and I thought that I meant something to him.
Yeah, so and I, like I said, Drake Bell, victim, absolutely. But he also went to victimize others. And this is what this looks like, right? And I think that this is an important, like, I really, if there was one thing I know it's not necessarily related to the docuseries in that sense, but I honestly think that this shows kind of like what happens. She went through a lot. She went through a lot. And so you have to point this out because there are people out there that believe that this woman doesn't exist, that she lied, that no, this did happen. It has to be put out there. In my opinion, she has a story just as much as Drake Bell, and it hurt me so bad. Let me tell you, when I saw Drake Bell's dad break down, it hurt me so bad to see that. I was shout out to Vic. I was like, that's probably the part that made me like, am I really watching what I'm watching? But there is a cycle here. This happened. Okay, so we have to be able to. This is her story. Put a face to it.
But that didn't last. Back then, the last thing I wanted was to lose him, not only because I was completely infatuated with him, but because I became scared of him. There were times where I felt really uncomfortable talking to him in such graphic sexual ways and wanted to be left alone. But I had a very hard time telling him that because I was terrified of upsetting him, so I would make excuses. When I did, quote, upset him, he made me cry. If I didn't give him what he wanted, he was spiteful. It made me feel guilty. He made me feel disgusting and absolutely awful about myself. At that point, it was clear that he was the one who was in control. I felt trapped and stuck because I still idolized him. He had me wrapped around his finger. This caused a tremendous amount of stress and shame. Crimes that he committed against me in Cleveland. I want to make something very clear. The reason that these particular incidents did not result any further than oral sex was because the defendant knew that I was menstruating at the time. Had I not been menstruating then, he would have raped me. Don't look at me like that. Because he would tell me how badly he wanted to penetrate me vaginally, but used much more vulgar language. On December 1st, 2017, my aunt took me to the Odeon Concert Club to watch him perform. That night, the defendant took me backstage to be alone with him. He started kissing me, and the night ended in him having me perform oral sex on him twice. The next incident happened on December 2nd, 2017, while I was alone with him in his hotel room. He had talked to me about seeing me one last time before we all left Cleveland and went home. So we went to his hotel to say goodbye. In his hotel room, he started kissing me and had me perform oral sex on him again. My aunt was right outside the room waiting in the hallway while this was happening. She trusted him and never thought that he would ever do anything to hurt me. Now, I would like to bring up an individual who has known about these crimes for years. This person is the defendant's partner, Janet Vaughn. In January of 2018, I was engaging in an inappropriate conversation with who I thought was the defendant until I received a message back from the defendant's account claiming to be Janet. That was the first interaction I ever had with her. This confused and devastated me. And I begged the defendant for an explanation about that exchange with her. He brushed it off by repeatedly claiming that everything was fine. After these crimes happened, I tried to shake off all of the gross feelings that I had. Ignoring those feelings only made them worse. I felt so miserable, broken, and humiliated. I was struggling to sleep every night. The sexual messages continued for a while after that, until I eventually put a stop to them. I did that by confronting him about what he had done to me. I confronted him in September of 2018, just weeks before I had reported the Illinois and Ohio crimes to my local police. I chose to confront him about what he had done to me because I wanted to gain my power back. I had to suck up all of the fear that I felt in order to confront him. He ignored me for many days at first. Eventually, he tried apologizing to me for, quote, breaking my heart, but deleted those messages quickly afterward. His crimes are not heartbreaking or whatever other loose term he uses. They are disgusting. He didn't care then, and he doesn't care now. That makes me feel worthless. I confronted Janet as well. When I confronted her, she claimed that she didn't know anything about these crimes. She denied speaking with me in January of 2018 and claimed that wasn't her.
Wow.
She told me that none of this was my fault and apologized to me. She also told me that she wanted to, quote, jump in front of a car. However, at one point, she asked me to let her know when I was going to the police with this case for her own benefit. Of course, I did not do that. She knows what happened and she doesn't care. Janet is just one of the few people who have tried to protect him, and the others will now know exactly who they are.
All right, so I'm going to stop right here. If you guys want to see the full video, check out Law and Crime. It's called Drake Bell's Sentencing. I believe it's got like 1.2 million views or something. No, a little over 1 million views. Shout out to everybody out. I mean, it's triggering and it's very much, you know, it's like seeing the cycle repeat itself over and over. You know, I'm looking at TikTok right now and just seeing some of these images that I'm like, I'm wondering about Dan Schneider in so many ways too, right? Like, you know, when I saw some of this, I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
So me and
It's just crazy.
so me and Jason are gonna watch this documentary later. It's on HBO Max, if you guys didn't hear, and they released the final 2 episodes today. I'm a child who grew up watching Nickelodeon. I used to watch this show, me and my little sister, who's 4 years younger than me. And I was probably a teenager, I think, probably when this episode aired. And I remember watching it with her and being uncomfortable, like, seeing this stuff, but not knowing why. Like, I didn't understand. And now that my brain is like, I'm an adult, I'm 28 years old, my brain is fully developed. Watching it now, like re-seeing those scenes, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, they may as well have done the actual act, because honestly, I'm like,
I wonder what Ariana Grande has to say about some of the stuff. I mean, you know, clearly she hasn't said, but it does kind of make you wonder because this follows her. You know, this follows Amanda Bynes. This all follows them forever. It doesn't just. I mean, these scenes are out there. You had one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Brian Peck too. You just kind of aren't y'all curious to know kind of what their thoughts are, or even like, are they ever really going to, you know, say anything about this, or they just were they victims as well? Did they? So I mean, their stuff is out there, right?
Today my special guest is the executive producer of the Amanda Show, Dan Schneider.
Hi.
Now you're the executive producer of the show.
Yes, I'm the executive producer and the head writer.
Actually wrote the words for saying to each other right now.
Yeah. Yes.
And I wonder why, like, even when he had the interview with Boogie, they didn't address this. They didn't address the potato. They didn't address the foot stuff. They didn't address anything. Petty says it's important that the society creates a more accepting space for victims to allow them to become survivors versus victimizers. The cycle needs to be broken. Society's mindset is part of the key. I would agree. Mustard said, Miss Quiet is way too quiet in my opinion. Well, embarrassment, or could she have suffered through something? I mean, one thing that was the theme out of this whole docuseries was that Amanda Bynes and Schneider were alone a lot. A lot. Yeah. Bear Honey says, I'm guessing those bigger celebrities probably hardly speak out. It goes back to like the Menudo and Ricky Martin. Ricky Martin hasn't spoken out about any abuse while all the members have spoken out. Kind of makes you wonder. Yes, people need to. Yeah. You said she just finalized her divorce? I feel like she just got married too. I know it's wrong for me to say, but I just don't follow celebrities like that. You know, it was a different time. Well, child SA was never been okay. And these were adults preying on children. It was horrific and just plain wrong, regardless of what time it was, in my opinion. Definitely. Let me see. People need to stop being starstruck. Hold up. You said I was too old to watch Nickelodeon back then, but I remember whenever I would see something, I was grossed out, asking myself, "This is for children." I remember vividly. Yeah, see, Lamb, we didn't. Some of us didn't even know she was married. See, Chris, like I didn't even know she was married. I felt like she just got married. We need to be better as a society to open up dialogue about the subject. Yes, I would agree. And then kind of calling these elephants, you know, but it's sad. It's so sad to see some of this. I don't know. Like even Giovanni Samuels.
Until you're not. I remember at the time, I think it was about like 2.5 years
Wow.
in, everyone went to Brian's house for a barbecue, and his house was a little off. He had a room that was just dedicated to like vintage toys.
So did y'all hear the part, for those that watched it? I know some of you guys watched it here. Did y'all hear the part about the John Wayne Gacy like memorabilia? Oh my God. Now that shit right there, that was freaky. Okay. When I heard that, I said, oh no. Mm-mm-mm. That was way too much. Hold up. And let me see. Giovanni spoke on the docuseries as
Watching
well.
back some of these scenes and sketches now as an adult, it hits you immediately how inappropriate some of this content was. So much so we can't even air some of them in our story this morning for the children on these sets.
I don't know why they say we can't even air about this shit on our, like, we can't air those scenes about the children, but you did then on a child's network. So I was like, wait a minute, what? You're having a hard time airing them because they're so disturbing now, but they weren't disturbing then? How is that? How does that work? I don't know. Yes, Vic, you missed that part? Yeah, I can't remember if it was the third or second episode. So, Brian Peck had like this John Wayne Gacy memorabilia. It was like a painting. You said a pogo painting? Yeah, like a painting. So he had like it just stood out, and it had like his autograph. He was having like correspondence with John Wayne Gacy. For those that don't know, I mean, he's the man that he was a serial killer who murdered a lot of young boys. He would sexually assault them. I believe he buried them in his basement. I mean, there's just it's just so much crap. Yeah, so I'm that's crazy. But yes.
They tell us many of these jokes went over their heads, but the adult behavior was all around them.
For children of the 90s and early 2000s, Nickelodeon was home to some of the most popular shows of the era, from the sketch comedy hit All That to The Amanda Show. But in the new investigation Discovery docuseries Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, some of the former child stars behind those shows say they were subjected to inappropriate work environments. One star even claiming he was sexually abused.
If we don't get all these people out of here in less than 2 hours, our lives are over.
Drake Bell from the show Drake and Josh revealing for the first time publicly that he is the John Doe victim in the 2003 child sexual abuse case against his dialogue coach, Brian Peck. Bell claims that Peck purposely isolated him from his father, who was also his manager.
I think Brian got a sense that my dad was on the watch. And so he started to really drive a wedge between my dad and me. He started talking about how my dad's stealing my money. Nobody likes that my dad's on set. He's a real problem. I was believing it because he's been in this business for so long and he must know more than us.
Peck was convicted in 2004, sentenced to 16 months in prison, and is now a registered sex offender. Bell says that abuse put him on a path of self-destruction, including 2 DUIs and a 2021 child endangerment.
Yeah. So they kind of go into that child endangerment charge. Yes, he was a fan. He was a fan of John Wayne Gacy. He was. John Wayne would, yeah, y'all know the details of that disgusting man. He would dress up as a clown. He lured boys to his home and basically murdered them.
Conviction. Nickelodeon saying in a statement, "We are dismayed and saddened to learn of the trauma he has endured, and we commend and support the strength required to come forward."
I can't even describe the feeling to know that there was a monster among us.
Giovanni Samuels and Brian Hearn starred in All That in 2001 and say Peck worked closely with the child actors.
When you saw who the victim was, it broke my heart. I cried.
We weren't close with Drake, but we were around him. He was a legend. And so to find out that he was being harmed,
brutally harmed
in a terrible way, it infuriated me.
Hearn and Samuels also speaking about former writer and executive producer Dan Schneider, who Nickelodeon parted ways with in 2018 after complaints he created a hostile work environment.
What was it like working for Dan Schneider? Dan...
You're asking the 2 Black children on a Nickelodeon set where...
Wow.
We were overlooked.
The actors were calling sketches written by Schneider's team like on-air dare.
Yeah. Those were torture moments for all of us.
Hearn's dare had him covered in peanut butter and then licked by dogs.
My on-air dare, I was saying, I don't like this. And to see that is...
And to voice it.
And to have voiced it.
I don't like this. And to be ignored because, oh, it's funny.
Yeah. Was it funny?
Who was it funny for?
Right.
It wasn't for me.
Hearn and Samuel say they hope the series sparks an important conversation about the treatment of child actors.
Your childhood is going to be a little tainted after watching it, but I hope that it helps you protect the next group of kids.
Yeah.
So.
And that is the point, right? Your childhood, it was an eye opener, that's for sure, right? That it's meant to help you wake up if these were shows that you were into, just to kind of analyze and see the bigger picture for sure. Vic said, do you think that there's a reason why Drake is coming out about this experience now? Maybe to tell his side. I think, I'm happy that he is. But I feel like I really hope that he's gotten the support and treatment that he needs. Like, he really has a lot of work to do, right? As all of them, right? Because everything that they've witnessed and they have seen, and for all we know, there's probably a lot more that we don't even know. There's a lot more that we don't even know, you guys. It is, right? There's probably a lot more victims out there. I would put my money on it. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because I wanted to, kind of, now that I process this a little bit more, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope that with this comes change, and that we really start taking and analyzing power. What does that mean? What does that look like? And help uplift people in general. I definitely don't have the answers to it all. I just have my opinion as far as all of this. I could be wrong about a lot of things, but it's coming from a place of just asking questions and seeking to understand, and also calling out some of the stuff that is blatantly obvious to me, at least, just like it is to some of you guys. So I appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you so much. It's a lot to this. Thank you. Says Rabbit, thanks for always being on top of discussing these cases and issues. Yeah, and I not in the most perfect way, but in a way, and seeking to understand, and also asking some of the questions. And like I said, if something doesn't sit well with me, I'm gonna say something about it. I will see you guys on the next one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you felt like you have a different perspective, that is okay too. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will see you guys on the next one. We'll be live later on today to talk about Riley out of Tennessee, and maybe see what other updates we have on that case. All right, you guys have a great one. Rabbits out.